Good afternoon, everybody. The best news is the final presentation, right? It's also, I think, symbolically very appropriate that healthcare is the last presentation. Typical of healthcare, we've made you come here and sit all day waiting to get to the healthcare presentation. And typical of many of our audiences, people just get worn out and they leave. So we'll continue to try to get better. I want to hit the headline that it's a spectacular time to be in healthcare today in America and even globally. And it's an industry that obviously is at the center of our basic value system. It's as human and individual an industry as we can imagine. And yet it's an industry that is really in need and in very early stages of a major transformation. And as Alan said, what I'd like to talk about today is a whole host of innovation that is beginning to emerge, and it's very consistent with what Philip said, which is put humans in charge, which is not where we've been in healthcare for the last 50 years. See if we can figure out how this thing works. It doesn't. Oops. Huh? No, they said I could just sweep the thingy here. All right, so I can. You want me to use this? All right. The red one? Arrow right. Highly trained presenters. All right, so what I'm going to talk about in the time that I have is how did healthcare become so complex? Number two, what is missing from the healthcare model? Number three, what is going to drive healthcare to higher value and lower cost? And finally, simplicity is finally overwhelming complexity in healthcare. And obviously, welcome your questions and answers as we proceed. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on history, but basically, there's a major change in the structure and the process of healthcare World War II in this country. Prior to that, it was basically like every other consumer industry. People dealt with their doctors and hospitals on their own. They figured out how to pay for it. There was insurance. But then in World War II, with so much of the working population being off fighting the war, there was a real shortage of labor. And so they put in wage price controls. And you couldn't compete for the scarce labor based on wage and price. So somebody came up with a great idea as an employer that we will provide health care to our employees. It's not a wage, it's not a price, but it's an advantage for you and your family. And the government decided they liked that, so they put a tax incentive behind it. And that put employers and insurance companies much more in the role of designing and delivering health care and health care support than I think was ever intended. And we've slowly migrated now to the point where it is by and large health care providers, insurance companies, employers, and the government that are designing and delivering health care. And if we think about this as consumers and we ask ourselves, show me another high quality, reasonable cost industry anywhere in the settled world that is run by providers and governments for consumers, that gives you high quality and good price and great value. And there isn't one. There is no such thing. It's not possible to get there from here. I'll hold that for a second. So World War II, now what's happened on a parallel track, and it hasn't had much impact, but it's beginning to in the healthcare field, is this consumer information technology revolution, which we've all participated in, and which is now creating great opportunity for healthcare and putting enormous pressure on healthcare, again, to put humans back in charge. Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, I want to leave politics off to the side. We've way over politicized healthcare in this country. It's not a political issue, it's a human issue. But the reality is that we have this new law, and even though I'm a fiscal conservative and a social moderate, which leaves me another one of those millions of Americans without a candidate, but we'll figure that out. But I believe that with Obamacare, there's a golden kernel of health policy in the middle of it that deserves to endure and sustain, so repeal and replace is a distraction for me. Basically, what we've said in Obamacare is that we're going to find a way in this country as a part of our national value system to make quality health care at a reasonable price and with individual accountability available to every American. Now, the packaging of Obamacare really was never designed to be able to deliver that on an economically sustainable way. If you remember the bill, there's a bill passed in the House, passed in the Senate, and they were going to go to conference. Obama had a filibuster-proof majority in both houses. But then, lo and behold, Teddy Kennedy died, and Massachusetts, of all places, elected a Republican, and he lost his veto-proof majority. So they couldn't rationalize a lot of the inconsistencies between the House and the Senate bill, so they just passed the Senate bill in the House. And we have a 2,000-page bill, which everybody agrees is flawed, but it's a platform, and it's something we can build on. The next piece of good news for me, we have that in place. There's a lot of rhetoric about it, but leave it alone. The next good news is that it's dialed healthcare up to the front of the consciousness of every American. We all know that this is a huge issue for us. We all know that healthcare is broken, that it's very hard to access. There was a comment this morning, where do I go in a crisis? And if you ask yourself that and you just stop and think about it, the options that occur to you are not intuitively friendly or likely to be very responsive. So we know we need to fix it. Government is in gridlock. Accept it. They're not going to do it. So the good news about that is what's left. And what's left is a very creative and very innovative and very driven and very personally invested private sector. And what I just wanted to show you today were a few of the companies that I see and that I know that are launched, that are operating, that are built on basically the same premise, which is the way that we behave and discipline as consumers, every other industry, has a place in healthcare. That we're entitled to the same information about quality, cost, and access when we're thinking about doing something with our health care that we're used to getting everywhere else. That the same tools that we have and that we use to get this information from everywhere else should apply to health care. And that we're fed up with waiting and long lines and unreasonable cost, and most of all, just simply not knowing. Where do we go and make a multi-thousand-dollar purchase and have no idea what the price is going to be until we get home and we get this thing called an explanation of benefits that comes in the mail? And I don't know if you've ever seen one, but it's reputed to be the biggest oxymoron in English-speaking world. There's no explanation and there are no benefits. And it goes on for pages and pages and pages, and if you can dig your way through it, you might come close to figuring out what your health care purchase just cost and who paid what. And we're going to expect to get high quality and reasonable cost out of that type of a system. It will not happen. So here are some entrepreneurs that are working to try to give you information when you're managing your healthcare life that will allow you to discipline the system in a way that will teach the system, what do you value as high quality? What do you value as reasonable cost? What do you expect in the way of access? And either they can compete for you in a way that is meaningful, responsive, and attractive to you, or they can feel free to go out of business. And that's going to really transform healthcare. There's a whole behemoth of entrenched bureaucrats who are going to try to defend against this, but that's okay. Consumers know how to drive markets. So here are a few examples. Doctor on Demand. Does everybody know Doctor on Demand? I don't want to go into a whole lot of detail, but okay, so the current model for somebody with a need to see a primary care physician is you wake up in the morning, you have a sore throat, you call your primary care physician, you get a recording, you leave a message, you wait around, hopefully by the afternoon they call you back. If you're lucky, they'll see you tomorrow. And then tomorrow you get in a car, you feel sick, you drive across town, you get into a waiting room with a bunch of other sick people, you get 8 minutes with a doctor, he gives you a prescription, or she, you fill it on your way home, and 36 hours after your symptoms appear, you're on your meds. And we won't even talk about the cost. Doctor on demand, you wake up in the morning, you have a sore throat, you download their app, you say, I have a sore throat, I need to see a doctor. They guarantee you that within 15 minutes, you'll be face-to-face with a doctor in a personal conversation. It happens to be on a smartphone, but you're eyeball to eyeball with the doctor. Obviously, they're not going to help you with a broken arm or really serious injury. They can help you with a triage for that and help you go to the right place. But if you have a sore throat and you need an antibiotic or something like that, they can look down your throat. They can get a temperature, obviously. It's a qualified, medically defensible interaction. They can send in your prescription to whatever your pharmacy is. They're licensed in your state. You can get your meds, and you can actually be on drugs in an hour or so after your symptoms appear. And it costs $40. Done. They retain a record. If you come back to them and you want to talk to the same doctor again, you can. If you come back to them, you want to talk to a different doctor, you can do that. Next is Amino. So Amino is sort of the next level up in trying to help you connect with a physician other than a physician that might otherwise be offered to you within your network, or if you don't have a network. And it's typically for something more serious than what you're going to work with on Doctor on Demand. You go on Amino's website, and I was at a conference at Harvard a few weeks ago. I was watching a panel, and a doctor ended his presentation by saying, the internet's wonderful, but I defy anybody to find a quality doctor on the internet. And so I walked up to him afterwards and I said, are you aware of Amino? And he said, no. And I said, can I show you? And he said, sure. So we brought up Amino. It asks, tell us a little about yourself, male, female, age, location. What are you looking for? He was looking for a hernia repair. How far are you willing to travel? He was in Weston, Massachusetts, willing to travel 25 miles. And then you hit the Analyze button. And Amino arrays by order of experience and expertise within your filter set all the physicians that you might want to consider that do hernia repair or joint replacement or whatever. And today it's based on experience, but Amino is working to also be able to share with you quality data and price data. So all of a sudden, as a consumer, you're going to be much more informed, and you can have a conversation with your network or with them. Also, if you ask Amino to do it, they'll contact your doctor and make an appointment for you. So the flying blind, the no options, no choices is dramatically changing with Amino, and they're launched. You can see the website of all these. These are all real businesses that are operating today. Health Engine is kind of similar to Amino, except rather than helping you find physicians, it helps you find procedures, competitive procedures. So let's say your doctor tells you you need an MRI in Manhattan, and you're in the whatever Columbia Presbyterian Hospital system, and they say, we have an MRI, we have a slot available for you 10 days from now at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and your copay will be $300 on a $2,100 MRI. Now you can go to Health Engine and you can ask Health Engine, I'm in Manhattan, I need an MRI for this, what's available? And as you can see here, they will show you other MRI machines that are available, where they're available, when they're available, and their price. And one of the amazing things about healthcare is the dramatic variability in price. And real data on MRIs can be anywhere from about $400 to $3,000 for the same, it's the same technology. And if you go to another center, they'll do exactly the same technology, they'll produce the same report, and they'll deliver it to your doctor. And then instead of your copay being $300, the whole thing costs $300 and your copay might be $80. And again, you'll decide for yourself what's right for you, but the point is you get options and you get information and you start to get the kind of information we're used to having when we think about how do we manage other important purchases in our lives. We get clickers that sometimes work in the new world of healthcare too. Another slice at innovation is the delivery. And Blue Cross Blue Shield of Florida is one of the most innovative kind of old guard companies in healthcare. And this is really encouraging to me that they're being as innovative as they are, because a lot of the old insurers, the big insurers, and we're down to just a handful of them, are being much more cautious about trying to protect their turf. So they're trying to wall customers in, they're narrowing their networks, they're giving you fewer options, they're making you pay more if you go outside the network and so forth. And the Blues have taken a very different, and I think a very consumer-centric approach. They continue to be an insurance company. They want you as insureds, but they're really reaching out to try to warm up the industry, to provide you with information that allow you to make a more informed choice and to build a relationship with you as an insured that is much stronger and much more human than most of the other insurance companies in healthcare that I'm aware of. And they've built, you can see the dots on the map, they've built walk-in retail centers for Blue Cross, where you can walk in if you're thinking about buying insurance. They're all multilingual staffed. They'll sit down one-on-one with you, take you through what's available to you in terms of insurance products, which is one of the more confusing purchases that we have to make. They'll help you apply. Don't be surprised that most of the people who come through that apply for Blue Cross. So they're growing market share, but they're growing it off of information and relationship building, which doesn't seem unfairly manipulative to me. They also have in these centers a guarantee that if you're a customer and you have a claims problem with the Blues, you walk in and you'll walk out with your claims problem solved in no more than 1 hour. And if you've ever had a problem with an insurance claim or the healthcare insurance company and ever thought about getting it solved in an hour, you know, it just doesn't happen. There's no way. So again, looking at this industry from the point of view of what really matters to people and how do we align ourselves to respond to that is very unique. Give another slide on the Blues here. I think we need a new battery. This thing's had enough for the day. Okay. They're also involved in building minute clinics, and this is another innovation that we're seeing. So much of our immediate access to healthcare has been either waiting to get an appointment with a primary care physician or walking into an emergency room, which we know are very busy and clogged and very dissatisfying, especially for more routine care. So the Blues are building some of these, but also Walgreens, CVS, Walmart, which is interesting not only for the distribution part of it, but what this is an array of consumer-based marketing companies. That's their DNA coming into healthcare. And they are doing it very differently. Walmart is fascinating. Walmart just kind of follows their customers all the way around their store, and they watch them and they try to respond to them, and they're doing this with healthcare now. And they watch their customers migrate the food aisles, and they look at the nutrition panels, and they watch them trying to figure, well, how many portions do I get out of this, and how many do I need, and how many of those do I need, and what else do I have to put it together with, and so forth. So they're trying to simplify that with an overbrand from Walmart, Great for You, so that you can start to select more quickly and more intelligently foods that are good for you. A lot of their customers come in on Thursday night that get paid on Friday. They've got $18 to spend on groceries, and so they've got to move through it. They've given them an app that allows them to go down, and as they put stuff in their bag, they scan it, and it tells them. They don't have to go up to the counter anymore to find out How are they doing in terms of their budget? But it's just this constant looking at healthcare through the eyes of the consumer that is, I think, very different and that is going to help us to be transformational, not to mention the fact that this is a much less expensive and a much more convenient way for people to be able to access healthcare that they value. Houseworks, just quickly, is a wonderful startup company up in Boston that is created and designed to help seniors and their families, allow seniors to live independently longer, and it's an array of both virtually and actually delivered concierge services, again, working from the point of view of what does the senior need, what's their condition, and how can they provide support for that. Blink Health is really fascinating. You know, one of the big challenges we have in healthcare are drug prices. Huge variability, very expensive, arguably fairly well manipulated. And how do we navigate that as a consumer? And it's also where, as consumers, we wind up still with a pretty significant copay. So Blink Health, you can go on and take a look at it. They basically are guaranteeing that they will provide your routine drugs at about 10% of the cost you can get it for anywhere else. And they're doing it through very aggressive negotiations with the drug companies. And then you order it online, and interestingly, you can still pick it up for delivery at Walgreens or at CVS. So again, just coming right in under this crazy drug pricing thing and using technology to start to rip unnecessary cost out and increase service to patients. Last thing I'll mention is the issue of larger delivery. And obviously, while we're moving to much closer to home delivery of many healthcare services, such things as Cancer Treatment Centers of America, we focus on late-stage complex cancer. You need very sophisticated talent, very sophisticated technology. It's very capital intensive, but there are growing numbers of companies that are providing deep specialty and only that specialty in one center. And it's not for everybody, but CTCA is one right here in New York, the Orthopedic Hospital for Special Surgery, reputed to be the best orthopedic care you can get anywhere in the country. And that's all that they do. And as we were talking about checklists and so forth, you know, you get to know what you do as deeply as anybody else. You ought to be able to do it better, and you should be able to do it more efficiently. And then cardiac care, Health City in the Cayman Islands. I don't know if you're familiar with this or not, but this is an Indian doctor, actually, who's built a heart hospital in the Cayman Islands and priced it in a way that gives you the opportunity to go to the Cayman Islands, have health procedures or heart procedures done, recuperate in the beautiful Cayman Islands and fly back for less than it would cost for you to have that procedure in the U.S. Again, not a perfect solution, but another example of how people are really pushing away at this whole delivery system, the efficiency and the cost of health care. So my conclusion for all of you is expect to be treated in healthcare like you're treated in every other industry that wants your business. And push back hard on unnecessary bureaucracy. We talked about the cost of complexity this morning. We shouldn't accept that. We don't have to accept it. There are other alternatives. You can find them online. You should be able to find them closer to home as all this continues to mature. And there are several other companies that I see that I didn't put up here today that just continue to push at this question of efficiency, cost, convenience, and patient care. So that's my comments, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
How can Blink selling things 90% of you know, how is it that, what's your sense of the fact that Medicare, Medicaid, the government can't negotiate it with the drug companies, but Blink can?
You just said it, Alan. It's the government.
I'm blinking, yeah.
Yeah, it's the government. Yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating industry because nobody's ever had the right conversation. There's another company that does eyeglasses online that, I don't know if you've seen it or not, but these guys at Wharton, they were all had no money, and they had glasses they were holding together with paper clips, and they said, you know, why can't we get eyeglasses at less than $500 a pair? So they went and they looked, and they discovered that all these neighborhood brands of eyeglass shops were all owned by a UK company or a European company, and 80% of the market share was basically a monopoly, and they were charging 20 times their cost for these eyeglasses. And so these guys said, we can do this online, and we can do it for, instead of $500, $95. And I mean, you talk about transformation. Who would want to buy eyeglasses online, right? I mean, you got to go try them on, and you got to look at all that stuff. And they said, I don't think so. So they send you the frames overnight. You can look at them, try them on. You know, you can send your order. We got a pair back there. Yep. And you know, it's 20% of the price. So I don't know if it'll be sustainable or not, Alan, but I know that the drug companies, I mean, drug company pricing, I don't want to be unfair about this, is very complicated. And there's so many cross subsidies. We pay a lot more in the US for the same drug than it costs to deliver it in international boundaries. The R&D costs, we've looked at that. I mean, the cost of how many drugs, and we saw it in the Michael J. Fox presentation. Years and years and years of testing. Small number of them make it, most of them fail. Who's going to pay for that? And that all gets loaded into the drug costs. But nobody's really put pressure on them to force them to say, you know, from the point of view of what we as a consumer are willing to pay for this product, you got to run your business from that, or you're in the wrong business. And these are the kinds of communication flows that I think open up that communication and adds that kind of discipline. And you know, the macro data in the US is very intriguing. We spend more than any other Western country on healthcare as a percentage of GDP. We spend 18% of GDP on healthcare, and yet our quality measures reveal that we're towards the bottom of all the others from a quality point of view. So there's enormous waste in the system. Let's get together and we'll figure out how to.
I have one more question that, you know, goes right back to this. We have some elder care people here that, and a lot of their business is telecommunications, equipment marketing. And what's the state of the art, and how does that? Is it simple? Is it accurate? Where is that all going?
In
telemarketing,
telemedicine.
Telemedicine, right? Telemedicine.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously doctor on demand is one expression of that. Houseworks uses quite a bit of telecommunications. They're not delivering medical services by phone, but they're getting a lot of information and compliance monitoring. I've got another team I'm working with at Harvard that is developing a combination of apps for Alzheimer's patient support, where it'll wire together the family and the Alzheimer's patient, and will communicate in a very warm and inspiring way, in a very disciplined way with the patient. This is what you should do today, and follow up, and the family members know what they've been doing. So the integration of the technology, not quite telemedicine, I think is very promising in the senior market, both from that company that I see and also from Houseworks. And you know, we're all comfortable. We all use this technology more and more and more. Whoever thought we'd be doing what we're doing with a smartphone, and who knows where it's going to go. And the application of technology is ascending. You can do an EKG now on a smartphone. Obviously, you take your pulse on a wearable, weight, blood pressure, all that stuff you can get and transmit, which is another interesting question. What's the FDA going to do with that? Because these are all medical devices, regulatable medical devices. The FDA has jurisdiction over all of these things. But what they've said is, we can't do that. So they basically have said, as long as it's you getting information that you're working with yourself, then they won't regulate it. If it starts moving actually into telemedicine, then they're going to have to come in and figure out how to regulate it, and I don't know how they're going to do that.
Thank you, Steve.
All right, thank you.